We're back. This is Professor Matt, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. And I am joined again by my dear friend, who, much like myself, is an Eastern European American person, uh, Brian Probansky. Brian, how we doing, friend?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
Uh, my spring breaks are about to start, so that's nice. I wish well, I think, I hope we're out of the worst of it. We're up in the Northeast and we were transported after Christmas to Siberia. And I've been living in like Kolyma for the last like 2 months. So God willing, that snow is not an issue. Uh, and right, it picks a season because I'm also coming off a head cold, which partially explains this. My hair, apologies, sweet audience, my hair is crazy. I look like the Wolfman or something. I've been trying to get a haircut for weeks, but between snow and me being sick, that just hasn't happened. So the next time you will see me on some podcast, I will be shorn.
I think it
Uh,
looks great. It's starting to thaw out.
yes. So, the reason we're here tonight is this is a long overdue Central Eastern European report. And, when I was brought on to this podcast years ago, I was brought on to be the Liverpool correspondent because the old Liverpool correspondent moved to like several time zones away. Uh, and because there was no one on the pod that followed any of the Eastern European leagues. Uh, so this is kind of my baby, and it's cool that I have Brian here because he also follows some of these leagues, and he certainly follows some of these national teams. So the first thing we're going to be discussing is the state of the various leagues we cover. Uh, right, and I'm going to start with the two post-Soviet leagues that are still on the old Soviet spring through autumn calendars. So their seasons haven't started yet.
Yeah.
Uh, Kazakhstan and Belarus. Brian, I have no idea what your familiarity or experience with either of these leagues are, but they've been a fixture here on the pod now for a couple of years. Uh, I started watching the Kazakh League shortly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine because I would watch the RPL.
Yeah.
I even did a Russian Premier League fantasy league for years with a
Oh, wow.
bunch of
Yeah.
buddies of mine from the post-Soviet space. And then Putin did what he did, and I was like, okay, can't watch this anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, and the Kazakh Premier League launched their own YouTube channel.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and so you can watch live all of the matches
Oh, that's great.
on YouTube, which is a good way to grow the league, and the league is growing, by the way. And the cool thing about the Kazakh league's YouTube page is that you can watch the match in Kazakh, in Russian, or now in English. So you
Whoa.
have
That's huge.
options.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually gotten into this league quite a bit over the last couple of years. And for a league that, for a league in a country that most people don't know anything about,
Yeah.
it's actually surprisingly competitive. The quality of football is not, it's not like the Bundesliga, it's not like the Prem or La Liga.
Hmm.
But it's comparable to a lot of the other Eastern European leagues, and it's actually improved greatly because if there is a league that has benefited, unfortunately, from the war in Ukraine,
Yeah.
it's Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Because a lot of foreign players that would be playing in Ukraine or Russia
Hmm.
have filtered in there. A lot of Russian and Ukrainian players, particularly Russian players who don't want to play in Russia, but
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
necessarily good enough to go to Western Europe, they've found their way to this league, and there's money to be spent because, right, natural gas and oil.
Yep.
Uh, and for a lot of these other players from the post-Soviet space, culturally, linguistically, it's comfortable.
For sure.
So the league has grown, and it this season it's literally grown because it has officially expanded from 14 teams to 16 teams. So it's a league that is slowly, slowly growing. Uh, so just in terms of, a recap of last season, Kairat Almaty, which is my club in Kazakhstan, the old
Yeah.
Soviet era club, won their second league title in a row. Uh, and they seem to be poised to potentially three-peat. Uh, I I don't know if you watched any of them in the Champions League this season. They're minnows. This is the first time a Kazakh club has ever gotten this far in the Champions League.
Yeah.
They sort of kind of held their own, and like there's weird talent there. There's like homegrown guys, including one guy I'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Uh Guys who I'm familiar with from the RPL days that got the hell out of Dodge.
Hmm.
Uh and Brazilians who you're like, I remember this guy, but I don't know from where. And like,
Yeah.
they played in Portugal or Spain like 5 or 6
Yeah.
years ago, and just it didn't work out. So they just filtered. And again, these are exactly the kinds of guys who would be playing in Russia or Ukraine,
For
but
sure.
because those really aren't options at the moment, they've gone to Kazakhstan. Uh, so you have Kairat, and then just looking at the moves that have been made in the winter transfer window, they do a lot of their business in January. And where things ended last season, I think we're going to be in store for a fun little title race, and one that speaks to Kazakhstan both old and new. Because before Kairat Almaty resurrected itself over the last couple of years. Kazakh football, or post-Soviet Kazakh football, was pretty much dominated by, I don't know, their version of Man City, FC Astana.
Mm.
Uh, and right, Astana is the capital now of Kazakhstan. It
Right. Right.
moved there by the old former dictator guy. Uh, and Astana's a weird city. I try to explain this to people, and it's like imagine Dubai, but Dubai is in the middle of the frickin' Central Asian steppe. There's
Yeah.
nothing around it, but there's this
Yeah.
weird city of just skyscrapers. Uh so you have the established Soviet era team, which look, Almaty is still the linguistic, artistic, cultural capital of Kazakhstan in a lot of ways. It's a way more cosmopolitan city than Astana, though
For sure.
that's not hard.
Yeah.
Right. So it looks like those are the two teams that are going to be battling it out for the league. And I think that's a hell of a lot of fun because this is kind of one of those derbies which people aren't familiar with, but
Yeah.
I think now is kind of a derby, an interesting European derby in the making.
Yeah.
Uh, because there is some serious there is cultural and social tension there, right?
Yeah. And I feel like historically too, that's some like I mean, even take the history of Liverpool and Manchester United, port cities, jobs going to Manchester. I mean, you have one city that was at its peak and on the decline, and another city that's, there's some interesting.
And see, Brian, I'm so glad you said that, and this is why you're on this podcast because I have that written down right in my.
No way.
Yeah, it is in some ways a very similar dynamic. And, it's that sort of Soviet versus post-Soviet, dynamic at play. And we're lucky. So the league kicks off next Friday, the 6th. But on match day 4, Kairat v Astana, that Saturday in Almaty. So, those of you with the YouTube, get on, subscribe to the channel. Uh, as long as you subscribe, you have instantaneous access to most matches. If you like throw in a nominal membership, like I think it's like $2, you get a lot of other cool stuff. So it's a league which we here at the podcast have increasingly sort of gotten into over the last couple years because when we first started doing this, we would talk about the Russian Premier League, and then it was like, well, we can't do that. So uh might want to check it out. In terms of, because I mentioned a player, and I think this shows the slow but steady growth of Kazakh football. The Kazakhs did it right. Initially, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they were grouped into Asia. And they said, okay, we could probably qualify for like a World Cup or something, and we'll definitely get to the Asian Cup coming out of Asia. But what exactly in the long run is that going to do for us?
Right.
That's because where the country is, it's kind of weird geographically, and geography is all constructed. It's all bullshit anyway. Usually white guys with maps and crayons. But
Yeah.
northern Kazakhstan is effectively an extension almost of southern European Russia. So it's as much a European country as it is an Asian country.
For
Uh,
sure.
so they joined UEFA and they were bad. Their national team was terrible for years. And, there wasn't an automatic qualification space for the Champions League, etc. But slowly but surely, you're seeing Kazakh clubs go further in European competitions. The national team isn't a joke anymore. They're not necessarily good, but when they're in your group, it's like that away match in either Almaty or Astana is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
And the first big Kazakh footballer, because right, normally if you were good and you were Kazakh, you would
Yeah.
just go to Ukraine or go to Russia, right?
Right.
That
Right.
was that was the next step. Uh Dastan Sapayev. He's a 19-year-old. He's a striker for Kairat. Won best young player of the season last year.
Yeah.
Arguably could have been named the player of the season. He will start the season, right, because they start their season in the spring in the Kazakh Premier League. But come late August, he'll be rolling up to Stamford Bridge. He has already signed
Oh,
a contract with Chelsea Football Club. And I hate to say I'm a little jealous at this because I'm the guy on this podcast who watches Eastern European football.
yeah.
I'm always really pissed off that Liverpool are always being mentioned with these players when they've already moved to another Western European club and we have to pay a premium. Like Kvaratskhelia, I wanted him as early as 2019. I saw
Hmm.
him when he was 17 playing for Lokomotiv Moscow in the
Yeah.
Cup final. And I was like, well, first of all, he looked like Georgian Charlie Manson with his big beard. And I was like, he ain't fucking 17. And he didn't play like he was 17, which is the best guy on the pitch. And then lo and
Yeah. Yeah.
behold, I'm like, wow, this guy's actually 17. And I was like, we should go get him now
Yeah.
because Sadio Mane doesn't last forever, and he could be that guy. And even when we brought in Jota, I was like, okay, but we can get this guy, and we could slowly but surely bring him up. And then right, he went to Napoli, and we were linked with him, and it was like, well, you want it to pay 80 mil?
Yeah.
We could have paid 15 mil. Uh,
Right. Right.
so I'm curious to see what this kid does now. It is Chelsea. He may get lost in their infamous loan system.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's not just a young, but a bona fide Kazakh player getting the move to the Premier League, like that's huge. That's
Yeah.
big. That's something
That's massive.
you wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago.
No. And it's exciting.
It
And and
is.
and to a
It
certain
is.
degree too, I feel like maybe it's just been not on my radar so much, but noticing a lot of like North Caucasus players, just a little east, you see a heavier presence of Georgian players, even like I we had a snow day the other day. I watched the Newcastle Karabag game in which Liverpool had played, and I was like, oh, like it's cool to see that representation of some North Caucasus, countries and yeah, it's creating interesting dynamic that I honestly, until you started talking about the Kazakh League, I had not thought of. It was something coming into this podcast today where uh thinking about I'm like, I honestly don't know anything about the Kazakh League or the Belarusian League, to be fair. And I don't want to pretend to know. So this is exciting to learn this as I would be a viewer. So
So you brought up Belarus, so we'll move on to Belarus. The reason we started covering the Belarus League can be boiled down to two things: COVID and Alexander Lukashenko. Because during COVID, the dictator of Belarus
yeah.
decided to act like a fool and said, no, all you need is to drink vodka, ride a tractor, and watch football, and somehow that will be fine. The Belarus League was the only league in town for a couple months. And so, because we really didn't have content, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, well, let's watch this weird thing. And they also too have a YouTube channel, not nearly as expansive as the Kazakh leagues. It's bare bones.
Yeah.
All you get is game, and occasionally, if it's like the match of the week, some guy who can kind of speak English watching the game, I think, on his laptop, telling you stuff. And that's even just sometimes.
Yeah.
So we started like covering this league, and so last season was a bit of a surprise. I came on this podcast and I said, "There's no way in hell Dynamo Minsk doesn't three-peat,"
Yeah.
because they had been so dominant the previous two seasons. I was wrong. We had a Leicester City in Belarus. Maxim Vibetsk, who doesn't really have much of a history. I mean, they were a Soviet era club, but I think they were playing in what effectively was the Soviet version of like the fifth division in England.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so they wound up winning the league, and so that was a bit of an upset. Now,
That's
to be
huge.
fair,
Yeah.
Dynamo Minsk, I did not realize how much of a transitional season last season was going to be. Their big, hot, homegrown commodity, a guy by the name of Morozov, had been sold to a Portuguese club. So that was a loss. And a
Yeah.
lot of their foreign players, because they've done a great job of recruiting sub-Saharan Africans, guys from the Congo, guys
Okay.
from Gabon, uh, a lot of them left. Now, new guys showed up, but the new guys didn't hit the ground rolling until about July and August. And by that point in this league,
Yeah.
that's half the season. So
Right.
Dynamo Minsk wound up finishing second. And arguably towards the end of the season, they were maybe the best team in the league, but they had dug themselves such a hole. If you put a gun to my head and said, who do you think's going to win the Belarus League? I would say Dynamo Minsk simply because I think they figured things out. I think this is, again, I think I underestimated how much of a transition last year was going to be. But
Sure.
this league can pull some surprises. But I'll keep it real, Brian.
Yeah.
The title race is not the thing that I am excited about the Belarus League. I'm
Okay.
excited about the Belarus League this season because during the COVID days, when we had to watch this, when this is the only league going on,
Yeah.
I picked a team. And originally I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll pick one of like Dynamo Minsk because I'm a Dynamo Kiev fan,
Sure. Sure.
no, Dynamo Brest or Homel. I've actually been to frickin' Homel.
Oh, cool.
But there was this crazy club with this crazy name, which I thought was funny as fuck. Uh, Belshina Barbinsk. Belshina translates to Belarus Tire. And indeed, this is a club that is owned by the factory that that makes those giant tires for the tractors and the
That's
big, like,
awesome.
heavy mining equipment that
Yeah.
was used in the old Soviet Union and, is still being produced in Belarus. So the club is literally, its name is Belarus Tire.
I love it. Direct.
And the city I know from, and if anyone knows anything about early Soviet literature and Soviet satire, there's these two guys, Elf and Petrov, who wrote a bunch of satirical novels in the pre-Stalin period.
Hmm.
And, this town in Belarus, Babinsk, is used heavily in their one story, The Golden Calf. And right so there's this real town that's in the story, and this town is where all this screwed up stuff happens. Flash forward to the early aughts, And I, at that time in particular, was consuming a lot of Russian language internet stuff. And the first, like, I don't know, post-Soviet internet meme was this thing that said, "Go to Burbansk, you animal," which was a callback to, the Elf and Petrov
Yeah.
miracle piece. So anyone who was on the Russian internet in the early aughts, well, first of all, you're probably on the list like me. And secondly, you know this town because of this like crazy meme and all this it's this place where all this horrible shit happens.
Yeah, yeah.
So I saw this club and I'm like, wait a minute, Belarus Tire from this town where all this crazy stuff happens. This is my team, goddammit.
That's
Uh,
incredible.
so they are. I can't even say this anymore, but they effectively were what Norwich City was in England for years. They are Belarus's yo-yo club. They go
Hmm.
up, they go
Down.
down. They go up, they go down. Well, they came back up. And so my interest in the Belarus League, and I'll be reporting on this from time to time during the season, Belarus Tire needs to stay up because that's all we're looking for, right? It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
survival. We're not winning. We're not looking on winning the league. We're not looking on getting European football. The cup would be nice, but I don't think that's a thing. All
Right.
we want is survival. Uh, so
Not
Belarus.
too much to ask, you know?
Not too much to ask. It's in a weird way, it's actually very similar to where I am with one of my German clubs, St. Pauli. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
about all I need is survival, baby. Just
Yep.
just get just as long as you're, above relegation, we're cool.
Just be here next year. That's all. Yeah.
Moving on to the last like quote unquote post-Soviet league. And it's the league I follow the most, but it's the league I'm most worried about.
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Yeah.
So we are now 4 years. Four
Yeah.
years of war.
And a day. Yeah.
And the impact of that is really starting to sink in. The Ukrainian League, before the invasion, was going through some problems. But that was because, as I've said before on this podcast, the only teams that really get hit with financial fair play are teams from Eastern Europe or lower league,
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah.
Uh, and the Ukrainian Premier League, which was dominated by these oligarch-owned clubs, they got hit by PFP hard and fast.
Yeah.
But the situation was stabilizing. And look, it wasn't all that long ago, 10, 12 years ago, where the
Mhm.
Ukrainian league, I think you could have made the case, was maybe the sixth or seventh best league in Europe. Uh, there were four to five recognizable good teams that were consistently in Europe in
Yeah.
Shakhtar, Dynamo,
Oh
Dnipro,
yeah.
Metalist Kharkiv, and even Chernomorets Odessa from time to time.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was always and again, I'm not the most well-versed Ukrainian league guy, but it was always, I mean, for years, you'd watch a Champions League game on a Tuesday, and Shakhtar's crushing Celtic 4-0 or something, it's
I'm old enough to remember like the late 90s and those, Rebrov, Shevchenko,
hmm
Dynamo Kiev teams. The Lebanovsky Stadium, which is this Soviet era concrete bowl which moves, uh, you did not want to go there.
Yeah.
Champions League. I saw Arsenal, Barcelona, Bayern Munich come to Kiev on a cold ass November or February, early March
Yeah.
evening.
Yeah.
Wilt. Now, granted, Revrov and Shevchenko, arguably the most underrated great strike partnership of that era.
Yeah.
Uh, but also, too, it's not cool getting yelled at by like several thousand angry Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, this was a league that had fallen on some hard times because of the finances, but you more often than not had several representatives in Europe, and
Yeah.
usually in Shakhtar and Dynamo would at least get beyond the group stage.
Hmm.
After the round of 16, things would get dicey, but they would
Yeah.
usually at least manage to finish second
Yeah.
in their groups. But a lot of the foreign talent that was coming into the league just isn't coming. And there's a logical reason there. Why would you want to go and play in a war zone?
Yeah.
The finances. Okay, there's some clubs that are doing quite well. Some of the smaller clubs, though, not so much. If you do not have an oligarch patron,
Yeah.
there's going to be problems. And Dario Sarna, the former Shakhtar right back and Croatian international, who is the sporting director at Shakhtar,
Hmm.
he gave an interview in the Ukrainian press in the fall. And right, because the whole conflict in Ukraine, it's in some ways it's very simple. In some
Yeah.
ways, though, it's way more complex than what, particularly mainstream Western media would make it out to be.
Sure.
Right? Because obviously the Russians are the bad guys.
Yeah.
But the West necessarily, like, there are times when I hear, the West talk about Ukraine, and I'm like, do you really care about Ukrainians? Or, is there something else here? And I mean, in some ways, maybe this is why Donald Trump is
Yeah.
sucks, but he's great. He was honest. He was like, "We'll give you guns if you give us our natural resources." And it's like, "Oh, that's what you really want."
Yeah.
Uh, so, uh, Dario Sarna, gave this interview, and he said, "Look, there are fewer and fewer young Ukrainian players coming
Hmm.
up through the club ranks in Ukraine. They're
Yeah.
going to the West as cheap labor." But it's just that. It's cheap labor. And whoops, there you are. You
Sorry.
froze there. That's all right. You froze there.
I got a text and switched to do not disturb, and I think my computer froze. So I just
That is,
minimized it and maximized it.
there have been episodes where I have frozen and it's
I
legendary.
looked at myself and I'm like, I'm not moving.
Oh
So
yeah, but so yeah, like a lot of younger Ukrainian players, and the Ukrainian league back in the day was great for this. Guys in their teens and their early 20s would play.
yeah,
And this would serve as their kind of baptism of fire. And then when they were like 23, 24, then they could make a move to the West and be a much more polished player. These 17, 18-year-old kids that are going into the likes of like Dortmund,
yeah,
youth academies, yeah, okay, they have talent, but they may never see the light of day.
yeah, yeah,
Long run, this is a bad thing for Ukrainian football. It's bad for the league. It's bad for the domestic league because
yeah.
talent is leaving,
Right.
and it's ultimately going to be bad for the national team.
Totally. It's got immediate and long-term effects. It's affecting youth academies, current infrastructure. Um, it's tough.
Yeah. So if you look at the Ukrainian league just started back because they have their long winter hibernation.
Yes, yeah,
So I'm going to say this now. This is Shakhtar's league to lose. Uh they currently sit technically in second, but they're tied on points with LZN Chernesky. But a lot of that is because last year's defending champion, more about them in a second, Dynamo Kiev, has pulled a Liverpool on me. Right, and they haven't been very good. And Shakhtar, it took Shakhtar a little bit to get running this season. They have a new manager who I was shocked when they announced he was the manager. I was like, wait a minute, he's not playing still? It's Arda Turan, the Turkish guy who's at Barcelona,
yeah, yeah.
Atletico Madrid. He's their manager.
Oh
Uh,
wow,
he
I didn't
apparently
know that.
managed a couple years in Turkish football, which shows you
Mhm.
how much I know about Turkish football because
Sure, sure, sure.
I was totally unaware of that. I thought he was still playing. Uh, he's been very impressive. It's taken him a while, the team a while to like gel and understand what he wants out of them. But he's
Yeah.
done a pretty good job. Shakhtar are one of those clubs that have the benefit of having a oligarch. So even though they're not getting as many young Brazilians as they were, right? Because that
Yeah.
was Shakhtar's thing. They were the first to be like, okay, let's aggressively get Latin American talent,
Yeah.
polish it up, showcase it in the Champions League, and then sell it to like Chelsea or Man City for an
Hmm.
insane profit. Uh,
Yeah.
they have a new crop of younger Brazilians. They're not as talented as the old young Brazilians,
Yeah.
but they're still pretty good. They're starting to click. And in a way, the war has one thing the war has forced Shakhtar. Shakhtar was over reliant on foreign talent.
Hmm.
They now are being forced to play their youth players.
Yeah.
And that actually what you have is a core of these homegrown Ukrainian guys who are all kind of entering their prime.
Yeah.
These 18, 19, 20-year-old Brazilian kids who add a little bit of flair to the proceedings. I would be shocked if Shakhtar does not win the league. Uh, about my boys. Yeah, we bet. Well, I don't know if we're bad anymore. We won the league last year and we won it convincingly. Uh, And right, we were riding high, a lot of young players. Uh, club legend Alexander Shevchorsky was the manager, having been the goalkeeping coach for what seemed like a decade.
Yeah.
But then everything got stale. The tactics got stale, the vibes got stale, and the only major player to leave was the striker Vladislav Venant, who wound up going to Girona in Spain. But he was also not just the team's leading goal scorer, but the leading goal scorer in the league.
Yeah.
He was not replaced. Matvey Pomerenko looks like very interesting talent, but he is in football in terms he's a fetus. And we bought this Moldovan guy at the deadline in the fall, and I don't think he has seen pitch once.
Yeah. That.
So we've been downright horrible. Now, part of it has also been injuries. We have been the walking wounded, particularly at center back. So again, it's like watching Liverpool, except Eastern European settings. Right? Because
Double the trauma.
when
Yeah.
Dennis Popoff plays, we're a very good defensive team. When Dennis Popoff doesn't play, we're terrible. We let in goals.
Yeah.
So Shevchorsky got sacked during the winter break. We promoted Ihor Kostyuk, who is the under 19 manager. And he has the interim tag. Maybe he'll be the full-time guy. There's rumors out there that Andrei Shevchenko is going to ultimately take over, but
Okay.
uh, because of who we are always linked with Shevchenko. So,
Sure. Sure.
but this may be a little bit different.
Yeah.
What I will say is, I mean, it's only one match. But we don't have to worry about European football, which is in this case, I think, a good thing. It was refreshing to see so many younger players, guys from the academy in the starting 11 and on the bench.
Yeah.
Looked a little bit more lively. If we can just be healthy and, I don't know, finish in one of the European spaces by the end of the year, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. It's good.
Just get European football, and we probably are going to win the cup because we knocked Shakhtar out early when they were having their issues.
Hmm.
Look, as long as we get European football and we get that money,
Yeah.
because in war settings, it's crucial for clubs in Central and Eastern Europe, regardless.
Hmm.
In these circumstances, even more
Especially.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just about getting into Europe.
Yeah.
Now, before we shift gears a little bit, I will say
Yeah.
one thing. The one Ukrainian league player who I think could make a big move to the West this summer. I actually wouldn't mind him because depending on what happens at our club, we may need not one but two defensive midfielders.
Yes.
Vladimir Brajako, 22-year-old defensive midfielder from Dynamo Kiev. He's not the finished product, but if you want a guy who can break up play, he's got, a decent range of passing.
Yeah.
Uh, he's physical and actually is weirdly like good on set pieces, which, geez, can you think of a club that could use a guy who's pretty good?
Can't
He
think of
could
any.
he could be your guy, and this is what I was talking about a little earlier about, hey, I hope someone at our club's paying attention to all this.
Yeah, yeah.
He could probably be had for somewhere between 15 and 20. And you could potentially add like an Adam Wharton or an Angelo Stiller, a bigger name,
Yeah.
and get this guy on the back end. And all of a sudden, what is a weakness might be a strength. I really
True.
like this guy.
Yeah.
Uh, so we're going to talk about the Polish league, and then we're going
Yeah.
to go to the lands of the Czechs and the Slovaks.
Love it.
So
Matt, I'm gonna pee real quick if that's all right.
that is quite fine, my man.
I'll be right.
I will introduce the Poland section while you.
I'll be 20 seconds.
So while my comrade uses the comrades room, uh, in my notes I have the Polish league and I have what the fuck. Because if you look at the Polish league table, it's freaking weird. First of all, we got a title race, and we have a multi-team title race because there's literally 5 points separating Bialystok in first place, uh, from Cracovia that are in seventh. So you have literally 5 points separating first to seventh this late in the season. Uh So, needless to say, the Polish league has been competitive this year. There's parity. But as my dear friend and colleague over at Delaware County Community College sometimes says about the NFL or this newfangled NFL, yeah, it's parity, but it's kind of shitty parity. Uh, there's a lot of teams at the top of the table. And again, it's competitive, but is it competitive because these teams are really good or the overall quality of Polish football ain't so great? I don't know. Uh, the quality of the Polish league has gone up the last couple of years. I'll freely admit that. Over the last decade, this has become a way more watchable league. But there's something weird when there's only 5 points separating first from seventh, and it's this late in the season. But the big story coming out of Poland is this. If you look at that table, Legia Warszawa, the flagship club of Poland, the biggest club in the country, are sitting in the third and final relegation spot on 24 points. How and why is the biggest club in Poland? And the Polish league, it's not as bad as France, where if PSG doesn't win the league, something incredibly horrible has happened. But it is sort of like Germany. It is kind of like Spain because Spain's really kind of just a duopoly, really.
Yeah.
This would be like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich on the precipice of getting relegated. And I'll be honest, I don't watch enough Polish football. I follow some of it because Bialystok, who's currently in first place, that's where my family's from. That is my club in the
Oh,
league.
cool.
Uh But when the shining crowning jewel of your league is yay close to relegation, that's a problem. And I can't tell you or the audience why exactly they've been this bad. Now, they have kind of gone the Nottingham Forest route. If we're including interims, they're a manager number 5 at the moment. So that's a problem. Are they going to get relegated? Well, they won last week. If they win and some results go well this week, they will get out of the relegation zone. I don't think a club, because there's talent there. There's like actually dudes there. If you look at their team,
Yeah.
okay, some guys you won't recognize a lot of names, but some of those names it'll be like Latin American players where it's like, oh, I remember him.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think they're going to get relegated,
Yeah.
but I have seen stranger things in my time. So that is something, audience, that should be worth monitoring here until May. Is maybe the most, in some ways, the most improbable relegation story in the last like 10 or 15 years is that brewing in Poland right now. Uh, and if that is the case, then there's some questions that we need to raise about the Polish league. So, Czechoslovakia used to be a country. Now it's two. Uh, blame the Habsburgs, I guess, kind of. Uh, so the Czech league,
That and Joseph Tizo, maybe.
yeah, well, yeah. The Czech league, it's kind of what's to be expected. We have a title race. We have Slavia Prague on 52 points, and we have Sparta Prague on 47, and then we have the pack, and
Yep.
that's it.
Yep.
Uh, it is a duopoly. It will remain a duopoly. If I was a betting man, I would put my money on Slavia because they have not just a lot more homegrown talent, they do a very good job of recruiting Latin American, West African, and even players from throughout Central and Eastern Europe who kind of don't get those moves to Western clubs. And in some ways,
Sure.
they're a stepping stone for those players to bigger moves.
For sure.
The Slovak League, which I got to be honest, I didn't really ever care about. And then I was like, man, Brian on, so I'm going to make a point to watch football. Uh, there's also a title race, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Slovan Bratislava, who,
Sitting first.
yeah, they're in
Yeah.
first, but they're only in first by one point.
Hmm.
Uh, Damachkia Streda is right there on 42. And from what I've been told from my friends who do follow Slovak football, this might not be a foregone conclusion because they've all told me this is the weakest Slovan Bratislava team they've seen in
They've seen.
a
Yeah.
long, long
Yeah.
time.
It,
And the fact that they've gotten into Europe is great, but it's been a double-edged sword because they don't have the capacity to effectively compete on two fronts.
yes. It'll be interesting to see how the next, I mean, really the second half of the season goes, which
Mhm.
could be said for any league, but and just full admission, I've not been following the league for a long time. My team is Trenchant.
Okay, I
And
was gonna ask you. I had a sense that could have been.
yeah, which is great. I mean, it's tough with a lot of these clubs, I want to feel obviously good about your team, and it's sometimes a lot of Central European and Eastern European clubs. It's few and far between some of the outright anti-fascist clubs that exist. And I was already a fan of Bohemians out of
Yes.
Prague, and they're kind of lumped in friendship partnership
Mhm.
with St. Pauli as well.
They are my team
Hometown of Martin
yeah,
Skirtle.
they
Uh,
are yep.
So there's a lot of good reasons that I like supporting them. They've been kind of fighting for relegation, and it's interesting with the Slovak league where it's actually more complicated. I'll get to it with the Czech league, but this upcoming weekend, I think the 28th. Lately, AS Trenchin's been playing like 9:30 or so our time. So I've been I gotta through one football. I've been watching their matches
Ah,
just
yeah.
through the laptop, and they've only had one win in the last few, but they're in a spot where I don't believe they're going to get relegated. They're not dead last. Um, but after this upcoming weekend, the table splits into two.
That's right. The Slovak League does what the Scottish League, I
Hmm.
think the Armenian League does that too, where there's the split.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Um, so a lot of those second half fixtures haven't been announced. Obviously, the top's going to be fighting for, first place. Really only one Champions League spot. Um, and the rest will be, at the bottom half, kind of fighting for relegation. Where with the Czech League, it kind of splits into three, and that's
Yes.
going to be a little bit later. Obviously, too, Slovak League was on maybe a 6 week break around end of December through all of January. Um, yeah, Czech League I don't follow as closely, but it's even more complicated because you've got two spots at the top for Champions League. You've got the table playing for Europa League positions, and then you have the bottom half fighting against relegation. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be, admittedly so, pretty interesting uh, going forward from here.
Well, we
Things
will
are ramping
check.
up.
We will check back with both of these leagues because, again, you being here gives me an excuse to watch more Central and Eastern football.
I love that.
And even
Likewise.
though, even though I have some familiarity with the Czech league, the Slovak league has always kind of been sort of. It's one of those Central Eastern European leagues that's kind of been a gray space where I know
Sure.
the big clubs because of their European fures. And
Yeah.
I know some about some of the other clubs because of their history in the old Czechoslovakian league.
Right. Right.
But since, the Velvet Divorce and the establishment of an independent Slovak league, yeah, some of these clubs, they're mystery clubs to me. And these are mystery men.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a mystery man who I'm
Yeah.
excited about. So there's a 21-year-old Czech player in the Slovak league, Radek Siller. He's caught my eye. There's something about this kid, man. He man, I wish Liverpool's left winger would, take on guys, try to dribble. This kid's pretty interesting and I've heard some things that he might, I don't know this for certain. He might get the call up to the senior Czech squad for the World Cup qualifiers. So that
Good.
he's a name to watch out for because whenever I'm looking at these leagues, particularly for the pod, I'm always
Yeah.
trying to identify, okay, is there someone I can see potentially playing in Western Europe? And also like, are they young? Because
Yeah.
that's the kind of profile. Well, we talked about the Champions League in European football, so let's go right there. So there are no Central and Eastern European teams left in the Champions League. So that's easy. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. The Europa League looks equally bleak. A
Yeah.
lot of teams crapped out even before the playoffs.
Yeah.
And looking at the field, I'd be hard pressed to see any Central and Eastern European teams getting past the round of 16. The only possibility, and we'll know about the draw tomorrow, I believe, maybe Red Star Belgrade,
Yeah.
because the away fixture in Belgrade is freaking hard. The year we won the Champions League, we lost 2-0 in Belgrade
Hmm.
in the group stage. Uh Depending on who they get, maybe they can get something at the crib and then fight for your life, try to get a point, some kind of result
Yeah.
away from home. But it's the Conference League where Central and Eastern Europe truly lives. And I will keep it real and see this is why Vladimir Putin, you screwed yourself up. If Russian and if there was no war in Ukraine, I can
Yeah.
guarantee you now a Russian club would have already won this tournament.
Yeah.
Zenit, CSKA, one of
Yep.
the big
Sparta.
Russian
Yeah.
teams
Yeah.
would have won this tournament already. Because in
Yeah.
some ways it's tailor made for that kind of not top five, but top 10, maybe top
Hmm.
12 kind of leagues. Uh, there's a whole bunch of Polish teams, and the Polish teams have done very well in this tournament. Do I see any of these Polish teams getting through? No, I don't.
Yeah,
Uh the quality, the gap in quality between even fifth or sixth place teams from England, Germany, and Spain, and the best teams in Poland is still
too
pretty
great.
smart.
Yeah.
You have Sparta Prague, who have some European pedigree,
Yeah.
but if there's a Central and Eastern European team that comes out of this and could go to the final, maybe even win it all, I gotta be honest, I think it could be Shakhtar. Uh, they're a new manager, some of the old heads are gone, but enough of those guys that were on those Shakhtar teams that were in the Champions League every year or the Europa League every year and make those
Yeah.
runs. Guys like Matvienko, Bondarenko, Bondor, uh, they're still there. And again, looking at the field, it's like, oh, well, Palace.
Hmm.
I don't think there's that big a gap in quality between this Shakhtar team and this Palace team without like a Mark Gahey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't think there's that big a gap.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you, dear audience, that I think Shakhtar is going to win the Conference League, but I think they are of the Eastern Central European teams easily the most equipped to do so. Uh, Not playing in Ukraine is, of course, a bummer. But if there's a Ukrainian team that's probably the most equipped for that, it is Shakhtar because they've been a refugee club since
Yeah.
literally 2014. And so playing in Lviv or playing in Romania, it doesn't matter. They've been playing away from home for a decade plus
Yeah.
now.
Right. Right.
So I don't think that's actually going to phase them as much as it would, let's say, Dynamo Kiev, who at least is still playing their home matches in the league in the capital.
Correct. Yeah.
So, World Cup qualifying playoffs, they are almost here. And unlike Champions League or the Europa League, Eastern and Central Europe is all over these.
Yeah.
Uh, so, Brian, how do you want to approach this? Because I have all three groups or paths.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, it's funny looking at the potential candidates, and there's some like Italy that you would assume to be in there. Ireland, obviously some like I'm excited for the 26th and the 31st. I feel like Slovakia is going to get out 3 points over Kosovo. Um, the 31st, I can't feel that confident. It's going to either be Turkey or Romania. I don't know. There's every bit of the spectrum there. There's some historically consistent, great national teams, and some that while I'd like
rank
to see them do well,
rank outsiders. I mean, let's be real.
yeah, yeah,
So it's funny you said Italy, and it's like, oh, they'll be there. Uh, those of you who have listened to this podcast for any length of time or know me just even like through social media or stuff, you know that, in addition to being Ukrainian American on my father's side, I'm also a part Italian, and I have a love-hate relationship with the Italian national team. Partially because I find defensive football at its worst to be incredibly boring, and I don't know. I mean, let's say we have been not the most accommodating fan base in terms to players who don't look like you. I'll just leave it like that. Uh, I don't necessarily trust this Italian team, but they are the headlining team in Path A,
yes,
and I think they are ultimately going to come out of that. And I'll say this: Northern Ireland is bad; they're not
yeah,
good,
no,
and this Wales team. Don't get confused. This is not your older brother's Wales team. The Welsh team that made that crazy run into 2016 had
hmm
Gareth Bale at the peak of his
yep.
powers, and they were really, really, really well coached. This Welsh team has neither of those things going for it.
Did the 2016 team have why am I thinking of Welsh Jesus, Liverpool player Joe?
Oh,
Why am I blanking on his name?
Yes, yes, they did.
Was
I
he?
know
Yeah.
exactly who you're saying.
It's
Yes,
killing me. I can't think of
yes,
his
they
last name,
did.
but apart
And
from Gareth Bale, yeah.
Ramsey was on that team. Like
Okay,
that was
yeah.
that team actually had like weird talent. And again, they were
Yeah.
really well coached. Italy should go through, but I am going to say this now. And maybe it's because I saw a good deal of them in qualifying. This Bosnian team is not as talented as it was back in 2014. And
Yeah.
indeed, Eden Shevko is still leading the line for this Bosnian team, which is crazy to me.
That is
The
nuts.
fact that
Yeah.
he is still playing and
Playing.
starting in 2026 is crazy. How young was he when he was at City?
At City? I
That was a
mean,
long time ago, man.
this is a while. I feel like 8 years ago, maybe more.
More
Like,
than that.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's like 2012, 2013 season. Maybe like the QPR final. Like he was on
yep.
the in that squad with Tevez. It's funny you mentioned Bosnia too. I mean, it's I don't follow the league, but I am a big fan of FK Željezničar. The that club is just so cool. I just a side tangent. I just like cool
Them,
crest, cool history, 1920s, like train workers, like working class as hell. Like this year hosted like, you have all the Bosniaks, you have like such community, you have them being like outspokenly like pro-Palestinian. I was like, this is a cool fucking club. And like they're sitting mid-table. Um
but
yeah, I don't know.
they are the historic team in Bosnia, and first of all, you should if you've never been to Sarajevo, you should go to Sarajevo because it's a cool ass town.
Really
One of
need
the
to. I
most
want to.
underrated food cities in Europe.
Yeah.
And they are my Bosnian club for
Awesome.
those exact reasons. It is a working class club. It is Bosniak, but at the same time
Yes.
has a lot of respect for its Yugoslavian heritage.
Yeah. And
Right.
big on like developing local talent too. They're huge on their youth program. Like,
We like them. Uh And I'll be honest, in 2014, I was like a weird adopted Bosnian because that team was fun to watch. You had
yeah.
Jevko, you had Pjanic, you had that center back who I'm blanking on his name. He played in Germany. He played for the Philadelphia Union for a bit too,
Oh wow.
during his career. That was a fun team. I don't think Bosnia is going to beat Italy, but I do think they are going to beat Wales, and I think it will be Italy and Bosnia in the final.
That would be cool.
And I will say this, I will give Bosnia an outside chance because I look at this Italy team. We still don't have strikers.
Yeah.
Maybe Chiesa will score goals, but if
Right.
he's not being played at Liverpool, what shape is he going to be in to play for the national team?
Right.
And the manager is not so much a manager, but a crazy person. So my trust levels with this particular Italian team is not great.
Yeah.
I I think they probably have too much for the Bosnians. Path B is very interesting. So this is Central and Eastern Europe Central. It's Sweden, which is bad. And Sweden probably with no Isak, which means
Yeah.
it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
Albania, who were the darlings of the last Euros,
Yeah.
very quietly have a very interesting little core of players based in Serie A on that national team.
Just
Poland,
no, sorry. It's funny talking to Albania. I mean, I immediately, us being Liverpool supporters, thought of like Shaqiri, and I'm like, oh man, I don't even know where he's at right now, or like
I
if
know
he's
he
still
was
playing, or if he would represent them on a national
he
level.
was in France, right? At one point, I always liked him, but he was also like
Same.
my height. So like there was like small man thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh and I don't know. I always have a soft spot in my heart for him. And his partner in crime, even though he was a gooner, Granit Xhaka.
yeah.
disrespected. Like Arsenal fans, it took him leaving Arsenal for Arsenal fans to be like, "Yo, he actually wasn't so bad." And it's like, I was telling you this.
Yeah. No, there was a
Uh,
period where there were some like some tough, small but mighty Albanian players on the pitch, and it was yeah, they were to be reckoned with. So
so you have Albania, you have Poland, who started their campaign off terribly because Michael Proborz, the former U19 manager who was promoted before the Euros, and he was given the mandate, look, the old guys are cycling out, you have to bring up the kids.
yeah.
He took that to its illogical conclusion and succeeded in like pissing everybody, including Robert Lewandowski, off.
Hmm.
I was There was a point where I was like, we're not even going to wind up with a playoff spot because
Yeah.
we look lost.
Yeah.
Well, he got fired. The vibes got better. The new coach, Jan Urban, uh, who, has extensive experience coaching in the Polish league, amongst other places, seems to have stabilized the ship. Uh, and then you have Ukraine. And this was, I think I may have said this on Instagram or Facebook. I was like, UEFA hates me, so there's going to be a path where it's going to be Poland, Ukraine, and I thought the Republic of Ireland would be like,
Right.
I'm going to be sad but happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I escaped with the Republic of Ireland, but I got Ukraine and Poland.
Yeah.
Uh so Ukraine plays Sweden. I can tell you right now, this Ukrainian team is more talented than the Swedish team.
Yeah.
But I have in my notes, Rebroff is bullshit. Uh I I had huge hopes for this team going into the last Euros. And I don't know. Sergei Rebroff, and it's funny because when he was the manager at Dynamo, he played counterattacking football. Somewhere around the line, maybe him and Pep Guardiola like spent a weekend like
Hmm.
at some sort of, event together.
Yeah.
He has fallen in love with possession football. But the problem with that is possession's great, but if there's no end product, it's just possession.
Sure.
And I'm a little worried about this Ukraine team. I think they'll beat Sweden because I don't trust the Swedish team at all.
Right. Right.
They should, at least based on talent, be the most equipped of these four to go through.
Hmm.
But I can't promise you that.
Yeah. I feel and like maybe it's an outdated take, but I feel like a large part of Sweden's success on an international level, uh, going back 10 plus years is random fluke wins from Ibrahimovic doing so well.
And before that, Heinrich Larsson.
Yeah.
They've always had this talismanic player
Yes.
that got them over the line.
Hmm.
The closest thing they have to that now is Alexander Isak, and he is out of the picture. And at least like 8 years ago, when they made that little run at the World Cup in Russia, they were at least
Yeah.
well coached.
Yes.
They are not well coached anymore. And that is a problem. I think Ukraine dispatched Sweden. Lewandowski is scoring goals again. And the one thing I will say about this Poland team is the new
Hmm.
manager has put guys in a position to do to express themselves and to mask deficiencies. But I'll be honest, I'm feeling queasy about that Albania match. Uh,
Yeah.
I respect this Albania team.
Yeah.
If I was a betting man, and the only reason I'm saying this is because if the talent overcomes Rebroff's tactics, I think Ukraine goes through. But I don't feel any kind of confident about that. The one
Right.
thing I will say where Ukraine has a distinct advantage over all of these teams, goalkeeper. Uh Andre Trubin, and he has to get the hell out of Benfica, especially after what happened the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Leave that club, leave Jose, my dude. Uh
Yeah.
he very low key is like one of the best goalkeepers in Europe that nobody talks about. And Andre Lunin, who's the number two,
Yeah.
he'd probably be the number one, except he plays behind Courtois at Real Madrid. So
Right. Right.
I I'm gonna pick Ukraine, but again, I don't feel comfortable about that at all. And
Sure. Sure.
the only thing I can say for certain in this group is I don't think Sweden's very good. Moving on to Path C, where we have Romania versus Turkey, which I don't know. This Romania team, you look at the names and you don't see anyone in particular, but
Yeah.
they're a lot better than the sum. The whole is better than the sum of the parts, and we saw that at the last Euros.
Yes.
Uh, and then your Slovakia versus Kosovo.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Slovakia, may I just say this? Watching Kosovo grow into what they've now become,
Yeah.
which is a fairly competitive little national team,
Yeah.
is quite remarkable because 10 years ago, we
Hmm.
were in the same boat as the Liechtensteins, the
Yep.
Gibraltars of the world.
Yep.
Uh, Kosovo's no joke, man.
No.
That is,
I
I
joke that
think,
like
I think Slovakia advanced out of that first encounter, but
agreed.
I don't think they're going to make it easy for you.
No. And it's funny. I was like, how we not be if it wasn't Slovakia playing them the 26th, I'd be rooting for them, you know. I'd like to see them do well. Um and it's funny too. I mean, I want to believe, I want to be hopeful for, you know, qualifying, but I don't know. I feel like even lately there's been so much national momentum for the hockey team, you know, and you see how that ended up. It was like we had some, Slovakia had some great wins, crushed Germany, um, Finland, just and I feel like that defeat, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want it to dictate. Obviously, it's a completely different sport but as far as the confidence for on a national level, I don't know. I'm excited to see how they do. I follow Milan, the captain over in Turkey, and see how he's doing. They're crushing. But yeah, I mean, it's like you talked about earlier. Some of our best, players representing on a national level also play in the Czech league because it's a bit more competitive than the Slovak league. And
And slightly more money. Uh,
correct, correct. You got players in Sparta Prague and Slavia. You've got them, elsewhere. So surrounding
so
countries.
I have Slovakia beating Kosovo. Playing whoever emerges out of Turkey, Romania is it's going to be tough.
Yes.
I will say this. I look at Slovakia, and first of all, talk about like much like Romania. If you look at the Slovak national team, there are some names, and I'll get to two of them in a second, where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they are greater than the sum of their parts. They're very, very, very disciplined, very well managed. They will not beat themselves. A, a little worried about where the goals are going to come from.
Yeah.
But if you look at all four of these teams, you might have the best defense of all of them. I mean, Hanchko and Skriniar
Yeah.
in a back three.
Yeah. Skriniar. Yeah.
That yeah, like I man,
Alone. Yeah.
like Skriniar's an elite defender, and David Hanchko is the best center back slash left back in Europe you don't know about. But
Yeah.
I do because I've been watching him for a couple years now, and I really like this guy.
Yeah.
Uh, I think he's better than who's the Italian boy at Arsenal? Calafiori. I think
Hmm.
it's a better version of Calafiori. So I don't know. Uh, if you have a good in knockout football, if you have discipline, you have
Yeah.
and you have a good defense, that can take you a long way. I will say this though, I am a little concerned where the goals exactly are going to come from. It's not like
Yeah.
who's my boy who played for Napoli for years. It's not like Hamshak is
Hmm.
basically coming out of retirement and like going to create
Yeah.
magic for you. Like
No. And also too, I just thought of this too, leading up to this was the fixtures in the fall where we got crushed by Germany like 6-0. So I'm like,
but you also beat Germany in Bratislava. So
true, true. Yeah.
this
It was
team,
just one rough. Yeah.
this team, this Slovak team is a lot like a lot of the teams in these playoffs. They're in the playoffs because they have some quality, but they're also flawed.
Yes.
So finally, Path D, we have Denmark, the Republic of Ireland, who obviously I hope they go through, but
Yeah.
being a Republic of Ireland fan for as long as I have been,
Yeah.
I it's when we do well, I'm like genuinely surprised. It's like there are no
Yeah.
expectations.
I,
North
I
Macedonia
okay.
and the Czech Republic.
It's great.
Ireland does have a chance,
Yeah.
but I'll say this.
Came out over Hungary.
Yes, yes. I don't trust this Danish team. I know a lot of people fancy them. Newsflash, they're not going to this World Cup. I don't.
Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
not the Denmark team of 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Right.
North Macedonia, okay, they're better than they were, but I don't know what necessarily they 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 could give you problems in so much that they're one of those squads where it's like, okay, we'll take this to penalties and take our chances. Where
Sure. Sure. Sure.
I think the biggest stumbling block for the Republic of Ireland and the squad that I think is going to go through is the Czech Republic. And I say
Agreed.
that for two reasons. I don't want to, I hate quoting this guy considering what's just happened, but I'm going to borrow from Jose Mourinho. Football heritage.
Yeah. Yeah.
They find ways to make it to international tournaments, even when they're not particularly good.
Hmm.
And Patrick Schick is scoring goals again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if he's scoring goals, that's a problem because when he scores goals in bunches.
Hmm.
Uh, I think the Czechs go through. I think they have just enough quality. And again, you don't want to overstate this. They find ways to make it to international tournaments. And
Right.
sometimes when they don't, they really don't deserve to be there.
Right. Right.
I, it, my predictions, Italy, Ukraine. I have Slovakia, and maybe that's just you. And also, like, I genuinely like that team. I've liked that team since the Hamshek days. Like, them being Italy in 2010 was at the same time distressing, but
Yeah.
also really cool because I watched that match in a bar full of old Slovak guys.
That's awesome.
Kept buying me beers because they were like, "You must be angry," and I'm like, "I am," but like the football that you guys are playing right now, we deserve to
Yeah.
lose. Like this is this is good, and I have the checks going through simply because I don't trust Denmark. I want to trust Ireland, but I know better not to trust Ireland.
Yeah.
And
Nope.
I think if they wind up against North Macedonia, I think that's a mismatch.
For sure. As much as I'd love the Republic of Ireland to be in, If it is the Czech Republic that makes it through and Slovakia doesn't, I showed you before we started recording, but I'll be rooting for my brethren, my
I
brothers and
ne-
sisters.
next time we do an Eastern European recording, I will make a point because I think I mentioned I have a retro 1976 Czechoslovakia kit from when they won the Euros and beat West Germany in the penalty. So it's the
So
Panenka
cool.
kit. So I have a Prague is my favorite city in Europe, maybe my favorite
Damn.
city in the world.
Yeah.
So I love Czech culture. I love Czech film. I love Czech beer. I love their football too. So I will also be an adopted Czech for at least a little bit of the summer. So we're going to end today's pod on a sinister, sad note, but it's something which I've mentioned a couple times in this pod in passing. So Infantino, president of FIFA, decided to open his mouth last month and say
Yeah.
something really stupid, but something which I have mentally been bracing myself for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
He totally, by the way, unprompted, just volunteered this information, which tells
Was
me
impressed.
because I don't think he's an idiot.
No.
He's doing this because this is the test balloon.
Hmm.
He said he was interested in the possibility of the Russian Federation re-entering the world of world football.
Hmm.
And when I heard that, I kind of threw up in my mouth.
Yeah.
I am, as you guys are well aware, a very proud Ukrainian American. I like Russian culture. I like Russian film. I studied Russian history, well, Soviet history, so shared, for better or for worse. A little bit of both. I have a lot of Russian friends. I used to love watching the Russian Premier League because I used to go to the plate for that league constantly, and I was like, okay, the quality might not be as good as the French league, but it's more competitive than the French league, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I even sort of rooted for the Russian national team up to a point because, yo, those teams with Arshavin and Pavlichenko in the odds,
Hmm.
they were fun.
Yes.
They were a lot of fun. You can love the country, even love the league, love the brand of football, hate the leader, hate the imperialism.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's my feelings about Great Britain. Like,
Right. Right.
exactly. There's not really different. It's like, I
Yeah.
like you. Just please stop with your empire nonsense.
Yes.
Russia has been banished from world football, and have been banished for legitimate reasons. If
Hmm.
you engage in wars of neo-colonial aggression and genocide, because I've come to the realization that that is what's going on.
Yeah.
It took me a while because, as a scholar of the 20th century, genocide means something. So you can do
Yeah.
war crimes and not do genocide.
Hmm.
But there came to a point where it was like, okay, if you're kidnapping children and raising them like as Russians, or you have hit lists of professors and priests, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's genocide, man. And
Yeah.
bombing museums and Catholic monasteries, yeah,
Yeah. My whole like I was thinking about this question a lot today. And like obviously FIFA is a corrupt organization. We know this.
yes, and
Going
we
back, I
shouldn't be
mean,
surprised.
this didn't start with Sepp Blatter. This didn't start with,
This was
the
there
current
from jump.
administration.
This was there from jump.
You've got, Infantino receiving medals from Putin, shaking hands with the Saudi like royal family. Um, the only thing that I would like ask really is just like be consistent. If you're going to ban Russia, ban Israel. If you're not going to ban either, don't ban either. Just like the cherry picking of this stuff is probably the most disappointing, where it's like I'm not surprised,
That
but
is that is why, Brian, you're on this program, because I've been saying what you just said for the last 4 years. If you're going to ban Russia, you have to
Mhm.
ban the Zionist place
Yes.
because it is
It's normalized,
it's the
normalization,
and it's the
normalized,
same thing.
normalized. Yep.
It is the same thing. The problem, and this is where I think, because I've been dreading this for 2 years, because at first I was like, okay, God willing, this war will be over relatively soon.
Hmm.
Russian football will have taken a hit and a
Yeah.
deserved hit, and you can blame your leaders for this.
Yes.
You can blame your ruling class.
Yeah.
But, eventually, they will be readmitted into UEFA, etc. But the problem is the war has kept going on, and unfortunately, the war in Ukraine has become my worst nightmare because people are like, "What if Putin wins?" And I'm like, "He can't win."
Hmm.
Well, then what's going to happen? I was like, this is going to become the Iraq-Iran War Part Two, and it's going to be eight
Yeah.
to 10 years of a whole bunch of working class people getting killed on both sides, and nothing
Correct.
happens. And
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
what this war has become.
Yeah.
The sanctions have actually backfired because when you sanction gangster places, what you actually do is strengthen the mafia state, and
Yes.
ordinary people become more dependent on these shady mechanisms. So,
Sanctions on a resource-rich country affect sanctions on a country that affect more normal working class everyday people.
the
Um,
elites.
to a degree where it's to borrow a line from, I believe it's Aaron Mate, murderous sanctions because sanctions kill
Yes,
people and it
yes.
affects,
And
casualties.
those ordinary people that pay the price again, they're
Despite Aaron Mate maybe not being pro-Ukrainian,
well, I like we said earlier, it's a little bit more complicated than
correct.
just that.
And
We
I,
are we,
not to get on a side tangent, I do feel like there are some valid points to their argument. Not that I agree with it. Um, in just the history of the US and competing forces on a global stage with Russia, it's always kind of been seen as the forever enemy.
yeah.
So
And
Ukraine was a convenient place for us to be like, oh, you'll fight our opponent in this forever enemy, and it can be your people versus ours.
to the point I made earlier when we were talking about the Ukrainian League,
Hmm.
the biggest losers in all of this are the Ukrainians, in so much that we are at the mercy of two colonialists. One
Yeah,
that is very aggressive, that denies our very existence as a people, and then another who will use us as cannon fodder in their
correct.
larger proxy war with that other colonialist. And I think really cares more about our grain resources and our mineral wealth than us. If
100%.
I can put it bluntly,
No,
like the United
entirely
States
agree. Yeah.
does not give you stuff because they like you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't live in that universe. If you care to live in fairyland, go ahead. I'm
Hmm.
not there. Uh,
Yeah.
so the sanctions against Russia have, if anything, backfired. It's actually strengthened the mafia state and its connection with its people because now if you want to get stuff,
Hmm.
have to engage in this shady mafia-esque, we saw the same thing in Iraq in the
Right.
90s, right?
Hmm.
Iraq was a mafia state before the sanctions. It became even more of a mafia state, and in some ways a stronger mafia state
Yes.
after sanctions. uh Russia, like you said, still has natural resources.
Hmm.
They can pay footballers, and
Yes.
footballers are still going to the RPL. Uh, a young Brazilian attacking midfielder who I had my eye on potentially, Liverpool, guy by
Hmm.
the name of John John. He just signed for FC Putin, I mean Zenit St. Petersburg. Uh
John Shelby?
No, not John Shelby.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Uh and Zenit also signed, and this is crazy, but this shows you how okay, they're out of football, but they're really not out of football. They signed freaking John Duran. Like John Duran was playing for Aston Villa 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Now he's in the RPL.
Wild.
That's that's an issue. And again, this the way the sanctions are applied are weird.
Hmm.
Like FC Krasnodar, who's owned by an oligarch,
Yeah.
supermarket oligarch who has no ties to Putin, they can apparently do business with people. But like CSKA, who's still technically owned by the Russian army,
Yeah.
not so much.
Interesting. Okay.
So, like, the sanctions themselves are kind of
Kind of
weak.
separate from, yeah.
Yeah. And here is what I think Infantino was kind of what he's kind of getting at.
Good.
So, is Russia going to re-enter UEFA? Hell no. Maybe Viktor Orban would be like, yeah, but that's
Yeah.
about it. That is
Yeah.
about it. But not all of Russia is in Europe.
Yeah.
In fact, most of it's in Asia.
Yeah.
And the Asian Federation, you have the post-Soviet stands.
Hmm.
You have India, even though they're not really a footballing nation, but they're there.
Yeah.
Traditional Russian ally going back to, the immediate excuse me, era.
Hmm.
You have the Middle East, where you have countries like Iran, who are close to Russia.
Hmm.
Also those Gulf states, right? Because this isn't the Soviet Union, where
Right.
even if it was really flawed socialism, socialism still represented an existential threat to the Saudi royal family, to the Emir of Kuwait.
Correct.
Post-Soviet Russia is just a mafia state. If anything, ideologically, these places are like actually in simpatico. And unlike the United States, historically anyway,
Hmm.
Russia will not lecture you about your human rights abuses.
Right.
So, if
Right.
anything, the relationship between Russia and the Saudis, the Omanis, the Kuwaitis, the
Hmm.
UAE, the Qataris, it's actually
Yeah.
gotten stronger
Stronger.
over the
Sure.
last couple years. And right, you have North Korea, you have Burma, you have all these places, China.
Yeah.
If they put a vote
Bhutan.
in the Asian Confederation for Russian membership, the
Hmm.
only three countries, only three federations that I'd be confident that would vote against it would be Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. Maybe the Philippines. Oh, and Australia, because technically they're in Asia now.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's literally it. Like,
Yeah.
they'd get in, and I said this, I don't know whether I said it on air on the pod, but I said this a couple years ago because there was talk about the Russians getting back into the Olympics through the Asian door.
Hmm.
I said we're going to be looking at a world where the Asian Champions League final is going to be like, El Nasser versus CSKA Moscow because Russian clubs are going to be playing in Asia very,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that is that is, I guess, the sad thing about this. This wasn't like an offhand comment or anything. This is going to happen, and this is going to happen sooner than we think. And it it just goes to show you, again, back to your point, Brian, FIFA has always been a corrupt joke little thing
Hmm.
which ponders to dictator people. Go back and watch my episode that I recorded about football and fascism and the Mussolini World Cup.
Yeah.
Like FIFA, FIFA's been fine with this kind of behavior for a long time.
For sure. It's nothing new. Yeah.
Nothing new. And when they had originally expelled Russia, I actually there was some like weird part of me where it's like, well, okay, maybe now they'll
Yeah.
have to be consistent on all of this.
Yeah, we'll set some kind of
Yeah,
precedent
this
and
will
be like,
set a precedent.
hmm
When Russia's playing in Asia and potentially being able to qualify for World Cups out of Asia
yeah,
in 5 or 6 years,
yeah,
that's the sad reality of the situation is that is not the case. I
yeah,
mean, I hope that eventually one day we live in a world where that is the case,
yeah.
but that's sadly where we're at. Uh, I wish I could put a more positive spin on that, but that,
I appreciate the realist approach. It's
well, but this is the
hopeful realist.
this
Yeah.
is the Central Eastern European report. Therefore, this is Eastern European optimism.
Yeah.
It it can always be shittier. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
right. So, with that being said, this was a blast. Uh, Me and
Agreed.
Brian are going to make a point to sit down and record another Liverpool specific episode, probably sometime in April. My March is really kind of hectic. Uh, and right, we'll try to do another one of these Eastern European reports, maybe towards the end of the domestic seasons and heading into said World Cup, and we can give you like some previews about the teams from the region that have qualified. And like we said, there's going to at least be, I think, two, maybe three coming out of Europe. Uh, the Croats are there already, as they are usually. And if we're including in Central and Eastern Europe post Soviet space, we have a Stan in this World Cup, man. Uzbekistan, which I have a lot of things to say about. So, Brad, do you want to add anything? You want to pimp anything or let people know about stuff before we end this?
Um, no, I think we said a lot. This has been great. This has been great. I did murmur a minute ago. I said Bhutan. I meant to say Brunei as far as
Oh, well,
problematic countries. That
yes,
was where my
Singapore, Indonesia, you get my larger point.
correct.
Asia is made up of a lot of authoritarian dictatorships that
Hmm.
are effectively non-ideological.
Yes, yes.
And Russia, for all of Putin's like born-again fascism, at least vis-a-vis Ukraine,
Mhm.
is sort of at his core still more Lucky Luciano than he'll ever be Adolf Hitler. And
Yeah,
so these are the kinds of people that do business with these kinds of people. And
that's no
it,
surprise.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh
Um,
well, it's great having you on. Uh
Happy to be here. Thanks for
In
having me.
terms of pimping stuff, well, the new episode of the British genre film podcast, which our producer Stead is so kindly to produce, don't go out to the moor onto the moors, will be dropping this week. So you all check that out, and it probably won't be until the summer. Uh, we mentioned, what is it like playing football in conflict settings? My short series of historically centered episodes for the pod will be coming back, and hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That is probably going to be the theme. Uh, Football under duress. Let's just say it. Yeah. So, more about that moving forward, but I've got some thoughts. Uh,
Happily done.
so without further ado, this is Professor Matt, and this is my dear friend and comrade Brian, and we will see you again in a bit. Take care.